All right, everybody, welcome back to the Skeptic Fence Show. And our special guest tonight is Roy Speckhardt. He's the executive director at, or I should say, of the American Humanist Association. Tonight's topic we're going to be discussing, for the most part, is religious liberty in America. And Roy, welcome to the show, man. Appreciate having you on the show, man. It's great. It's an honor.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be on.
You're welcome. And we got a little bio set up here. So, Paul, you want to have at it? And then let's give Roy here an introduction.
All right, let's see if I can get through this without cracking up. Drew. Roy Speckhardt is the executive director of the American Humanist Association, a nonprofit civil liberties organization in Washington, D.C. He earned a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from Mary Washington College and a Master of Business Administration with a concentration in Information Systems Management from George Mason University. In addition to his college education, he received specialized training in nonprofit tax law, financial management, grassroots organizing, fundraising, and dispute resolution. Early in his career, he was a fundraiser for various causes, including AIDS research and wildlife conservation, worked on the World Difference campaign of the Anti-Defamation League. He worked for the Interfaith Alliance from 1995 to 2001 as deputy director in charge of staff. Mr. Speckhardt worked as the director of membership and programs of the American Humanist Association for 4 years, and now is the executive director. The American Humanist Association is the oldest and one of the largest groups of humanists and atheists in the United States. He serves on the boards of directors of the Humanist Institute, the Institute for Humanist Studies, the United Coalition of Reason, and the Secular Coalition for America. He has appeared on CNN Headline News, Fox News' Fox and Friends, Good Morning America, and National Public Radio. He currently writes a regular column for the Huffington Post and Pathos.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Roy, anything you want to add, or is that pretty accurate?
That's quite a complete report. Yes, thank you.
Awesome. So how was it being on Fox and Friends? Are they like really cool people to hang out, or?
Surprisingly, they're not so bad. I found that some of the more difficult hosts that I've had to deal with were actually on CNN Headline News. And also, I guess I should mention the Kelly show. That she was particularly difficult on Fox because she wasn't. Now people think of Fox as kind of lying and exacerbating the truth, but she just kind of had a lot of bald-faced lies within the interview, which made it difficult to try to build a point when she just made up counterpoints.
Exactly. Yeah. That's well, you see that more on Fox News, but yeah. So let's get into the Q&A here. My first question here is, for people that don't know you out there, give us a little background on who Roy Speckhardt is. Were you raised religious? If so, what was the journey like? What questions did you ponder, if any?
Yeah, I was raised Catholic, although it was a pretty liberal Catholic in New York, where the church that I went to, the priest was kind of known as being pro-choice. It just things weren't shoved down your throat in the way they are in some Catholic churches, but it's still, I went with it. I was a little bit skeptical, and I thought that the Catholicism people were teaching me that, you had to be Catholic in order to go to heaven if you knew about Catholicism. That didn't really make sense to me. And so I kept modifying my Catholicism little by little until I realized I wasn't Catholic. And then it wasn't too many more steps before I realized, gosh, I don't really believe in God. And then for a long time, I was a bit of an angry atheist, and I was upset with the world for shoving this bad information down my throat. But as I miled it out a little bit, I found humanism, and since then I've been involved in humanism and the American Humanist Association, which takes a little bit more mild-mannered approach to it.
No, well said. And I agree with the angry atheist part because I was married to a very devout religious person, and I was an atheist at that time. I've been an atheist since I was 21, and I just had that when I first came to YouTube and I started making videos. I was so angry at like her parents, I was so angry, and I was just like, now I'm a little bit more mild than I used to be. So I'm mild down now. But to expand on that, what you just said towards the end there, why did you choose this career path, and what advice would you give somebody that might want to choose a similar career path?
Well, for me, I really wanted to make a difference in the world in a positive direction. I wanted to be leading an organization that could have an impact on society that was positive. And looking at the different groups out there, and I could get involved in a pro-choice group, or LGBT rights group, or one of those types of organizations, which I do appreciate and support their cause. But with humanism, I can work on all those causes at once, and the underlying concerns that really allow these social problems to exist in the first place, because religious ideas perpetuate these problems and give reason for people to feel morally superior while they're being prejudiced and bigoted.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's so funny how the Christians, like devout Christians, not all Christians, many Christians out there devout, where they feel like they're a higher authority over everybody. You know what I mean? It's like their religion is the up. No, you have to respect their religion, and they're right in every sense. And it's just like they think they're above you, and they talk down to you like you're up. You don't believe in God. What's that? It's like, come on, really? And,
Right.
yeah, it's just yeah, you hit the nail on the head on that. So that being said, my next question really is it might be entertaining to people, but I don't know. In your opinion, what is the best or most laughable, unintelligent argument or statement when it comes to devout Christians defending their religious liberty or freedom? Is there anything that sticks out in your mind that says, wow, when they say this on this argument, it's like you gotta laugh at it. It's like it's totally not true, something like that.
Gosh,
Anything?
there's so many things.
Oh, you can pick a couple if you want. Go ahead.
That is said has that effect for me. I mean, I think that when you look at things from a rational, reasonable perspective, you really can't bring into it ideas of faith. And faith, can be seen as this positive word in this country, but it's really not, because it wouldn't exist without the idea that you're setting aside reason in order to believe something. And so anything that you have faith in, you're setting aside reason to believe in it, and that's a problem. And it really ends up leaving people seeming ridiculous all the time.
No, I totally see your point on that, and bring up a point that we had Peter Boghossian on the show before, and he came out with a book called Manual for Creating Atheists, and he, like you said, faith. People bring up faith all the time, and faith, I see it as a virus to a certain point. It's just you indoctrinate your kids, and it spreads from there on out. And I guess we're the type of people that try to promote reason and logic, and we try to, I guess you could say, defend the good of humanity. That's what we try to do, at least, But that being said, my next question is, I'll get onto my viewer questions here. I must say that I never read your HuffPost blog before. I love it. I recommend everybody here to go check it out. And of course,
Thank you.
You're welcome, and I'll provide a link to your blogs and your pages down below in the description box when this video comes out. Now, you recently wrote an article titled "Twisting Religious Liberty into Religious Discrimination." Now, let's talk about this for a little bit. I'll give you an example here. The issue with businesses putting notes on their windows denying gays eating at the restaurant, or even, there's been a case out there where a local baker refused to make a cake for a gay wedding, gay couple, due to their religious belief and so on. I agree this is just plain out discrimination, and the owners, employees should be held responsible. Or at least accountable for their actions. But where can we draw a line? Is there a line we can draw when it comes to an owner's right to kick somebody out of their business? Is it, no shirt,
Right.
no shoes, cursing, being gay, being an atheist, being religious, not worshiping, I should say, a different God? Can we objectively determine a standard on this issue? And can one's personal belief play a factor in determining a standard? Can there be one?
Well, I mean, I believe that businesses provide a public accommodation, which means that they have to provide that business to anybody who comes through the door. Now, they could ask people to, have a certain standard of dress in order to participate in a high-end restaurant or something like that.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't be discriminating against people based on their religion or lack thereof when they're operating a public business like that. And there are laws against discrimination. And so I think that, unfortunately, we're seeing those laws undermined. We're seeing this concept of businesses not being allowed to discriminate going out the window with this Hobby Lobby case, which they're going to give us an opinion on in just 2 days. If it rules negatively, like I expect it to, and if it's broad ranging, which I'm hoping it isn't, but if it is broad ranging, what's going to happen is that businesses are going to have the idea they're not only are they a person, but they're a person with religious rights. Essentially, is what's happening, and a person with religious rights could say, "Heck, I don't need to follow that law because it's against my religion." And you're going to see corporations using this to get around all kinds of laws.
Loopholes, yeah.
And it's a really unbelievably huge problem if it goes the way it's going.
Exactly. There's no doubt.
Seems,
Go, Paul.
I'm sorry, I want to say it seems like it probably would go that way since the Supreme Court and seems to think that corporations are people too, entities under law. So why not allow them religious liberty as well, and then they can use that as the excuse they are now. So I'm sorry, it seems like it's going to go that way since in the past they've ruled that corporations are people too, and
right.
So and all the rights that go with that.
Right, and it's not. It's fine if a business owner has some religious views or prejudicial views; they can have that too. But when they impose that upon their customers or their employees, like Hobby Lobby's doing, saying that their employees can't get contraception through their health care, that's the crux of the issue here. Yeah. That moves from prejudice to active discrimination, and I don't think that our government should allow that. But unfortunately, there was this law passed not too long ago called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. I don't know if you've talked about that before.
No, we haven't.
But that really changed the game. It used to be that if an individual wanted to, go against the rules and have their religious liberty to wear a special hat or something like that, the burden of proof was on them to prove that they should be able to do this, that this was part of their religion, and that it wouldn't be a burden on government. But this RFRA law, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, flipped that. So now it's a burden on government to say that it wouldn't be a burden on government for them to allow them to violate the law. And so you get, it opens the door for religious excuses for not vaccinating their kids, to all kinds of things. And this Hobby Lobby is just going to expand it.
Wow. I did not know that. I'm going to look into this Religious Restoration Act too, man. I wasn't aware of that. Were any of you aware of that? TJ, Drew, Paul? No, I wasn't aware of that. How new is that, Roy?
Well, it actually, it's not particularly new.
It's just something they're using.
Yeah, right. It's something the religious right found that they can use to create special rights for religious. And that's what, really in the last few years, they've picked up on it as something they could get away with doing that and expanding it as much as they can to have all sorts of special rights for the religious.
Well, that could be an issue.
Yeah, I vaguely know about it because of the government having to prove that it's a burden on the government. I knew about that part, but I didn't know how they were using it. So that's actually very enlightening. And one thing I wanted to ask, sorry, that's right. Isn't it hypocritical of the Hobby Lobby guy to be so anti-contraceptive when he invests in so many companies that produce them?
That's true. Yes.
Wow.
Excellent point.
It is. I got one viewer submission question here, and we'll, I'll hand it over to one of these guys here. I got a viewer submission question from Rolf Hall. Question is, how long does he think it will take for religious liberty to not mean, quote, your life will be decided by my religion, unquote, if it is possible that it could happen in our life? Is it possible that could happen in our lifetime?
Well, definitely. And I think that part of the answer is the numbers of people who feel like I think the folks on this show do are going up, up, up. I just saw a poll today from the University of Colorado system, which includes a number of universities, and the amount of students going to the schools there that are profess to be atheist, 15%, profess to be agnostic, another 15%, and list NONE, another 18%. I mean, we're talking, potentially close to 50%.
Yeah.
Who are moving in this direction. And I think it looks to me like this change that we've been seeing over the recent years is just accelerating.
I totally agree with that. I mean, like, I think the youth demographic, which is the age bracket 18 to 39, I think it is. I think
Yeah.
that's the key demographic, and it's, you know, if you look at the poll when it goes by the demographic, the age demographic, you just see a slope going like this. You know what I mean? Or even like this, depending how you're looking at the graph. But yeah, you just see it. It seems to me it's generational. I mean, like, that's my viewpoint. I mean, like, every statistic I looked at, it seems like religion seems to be generational. I think as the future generations, you know, come into play, we're going to see a big difference. Just like you said, I think in our lifetime we'll definitely see. I think not definitely, but I think it's more likely that we're going to see 50%. We're going to see. I think religion is going to be a minority in the United States when I hit 70 or 80, if I live that long. I think that's just my own personal opinion. So
Yeah, that sounds good. And
I
I
hope.
think that there's some misunderstanding. The politicians today think it's political suicide to say that they don't believe in God, but I think their fear is greater than the reality. When, even though it was in a liberal area, Representative Pete Stark, when he came out as the first atheist several years ago, they thought, oh well, he won't get reelected, but he did with 75% of the vote. Um, he didn't get reelected this last time, but that was because he had redistricting had him up against a young, energetic challenger. But I think that people can get reelected, can be elected if they're atheists, despite the general public's bias against us. I think that the more that happens, the more it proves at that point, the more we're going to get progress accelerating on the political side.
Correct, and I agree. And I just want to basically expand on what I said. Is I'm not discriminating against religion whatsoever. I'm like, they're allowed to have their religion, so on and so forth. But I just think with the polls that have been conducted in the last 10 years, they're showing huge progress. So sorry about that. TJ, go ahead, man. I think you're next. Go ahead.
Yeah. How you doing, Roy?
Good.
Uh, I'm known here on the Skeptic Fence Show for asking the really like the hard-hitting questions, So I hope you're prepared. You're ready for this. All right. So
You bet.
you call yourself a humanist.
Uh-huh.
So I wondered if you could tell me exactly what a humanist is.
Well, humanists are essentially people who are good without a god. It's back in the early part of the 20th century, some religious leaders from the Quaker tradition, from the Unitarian tradition, from the Jewish tradition, got together and said, we don't believe in God, and that invalidates much of what is in our religion. What do we do next? And so the conversation they had led to the modern humanist movement, and so it is a movement that is atheistic. It doesn't have a theism, but it embraces agnostics as well, who don't believe that there's a God that interferes in our day-to-day lives.
Well, I guess that could include deists as well, right?
It could, depending on how you look at it.
Deists don't think that God is like a personal God or that he interferes with our lives in any way. And I guess they could be humanist and still believe in a God at the same time. So I guess there is like a small overlap there. There's not too many deists out there, really. Or at least not many that
Claim
that
to be
argue in favor of deism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Which is a fair point.
Deism is the correct and most
that
objective
would be
view.
hilarious, actually,
Yeah.
to see someone argue deism. I have yet to see that. All right, on to some serious questions. I appreciate you explaining exactly what your definition of humanism is, and I thought it was a good one. But you were speaking earlier about atheist politicians. So why do you think such a large percentage of the population say that they wouldn't vote for an atheist presidential candidate?
Well, it really has to do with trust. Other polls have shown that that atheists, people who don't believe in God, are the least trusted, and that it's not possible for many people in this country to understand that you can be good without a God. That's why our tagline, "Good without a God," and our billboards that we put up cause such trouble, because even the idea that you could exist and be good without believing in a God is a threat to their faith. And I think that is the crux to the problem. If they accept that goodness has nothing to do with belief in God, then why are they believing in God and following all this crappy rules, right?
Yeah, really,
Yeah, I agree. Well, all right, to expand on it a little bit, do you think it's important for a candidate's religion to be considered when voting for them, like in cases of like an extremist versus a moderate, or like a Scientologist versus a Christian, etc.? And should atheists make their atheism a major factor in who they vote for? Which is similar, I think, to what Christians do.
I think to an extent, yes. I mean, if you think about it, atheists can be anywhere on the political spectrum. So it's not a slam dunk. I'm not going to say, oh, what's your faith or not lack thereof, and then I know who to vote for. It's a factor among a number of factors. But if you say, I think the world is 7,000 years old, and that that nothing we can do affects the earth, and that women don't have a place in a household except serving the man, I think that's the kind of rules that faith that's behind it is indicative of rules that I don't agree with, and so I wouldn't vote for somebody like that.
All right. All right, so why do you think more people are willing to vote for a dishonest theist than an honest atheist? Or all right, I'll expand on it. Why are people so naive that they can be convinced to vote for an obvious liar who claims he or she has God on their side, rather than a candidate who has proven that they are trustworthy and who holds that standard without the belief of a deity that will reward or punish them for their actions?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that so many people out there are gullible, are willing to take things without analyzing the facts behind them. I mean, that's part of why we have so many active people of faith, especially the religious right ones, people who think that the Bible could be interpreted literally and give accurate answers, even though everything we know about the history of the Bible says that it wasn't. The language we're looking at today is nothing like the original written language, which was written by hands full of people who they keep changing their mind as to which parts. It all doesn't make sense if you think about it. And that's the problem. They're not thinking about it. And what we should do is do what we can to get them to think about it harder. I think that's one of our big jobs, to point out the errors, to give them some of the potential to fix those mistakes.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
Very, very well said.
Very well said.
All right, I've got two more questions, but one of them's pretty quick. How can anybody be against humanism? I mean, are they really that callous, or is it just a shallow way to protect their religion and faith?
I think it is a shallow way to protect their faith, and that I've had conversations with religious right talk show host who said that I shouldn't exist, and was talking about how somebody should do something about us atheists going around pretending to be Americans. And this person, talk show host, was one that was near my home, and I was a little concerned, all the way up to the point where he said that I would get mine after I died when I went to hell, which I figured I could wait on that.
Agreed. All right.
That's funny.
All right. Last one. This one. This is something that I've often thought about, and it's probably because I'm a masochist of a certain degree. Have you ever had the inclination to let the Christians in the U.S., like the American Taliban, as I call them, have their way, like prayer in schools and in Congress and the courtrooms and all that shit, just to see them squabble with each other over whose version of their religion gets to be forced on the rest of us?
Well, that's a little too risky for me.
Well, I'm saying,
but I agree that's what happens.
Wouldn't it be so much more entertaining if Sarah Palin was the vice president? I guess is what I'm saying. Like, I was almost tempted to vote Republican just for the entertainment.
Yeah, right.
I can appreciate that.
Well, I mean, you've never had the inclination to just like, have you ever thought about what it would be like if they got their way?
Yeah.
Well, sadly, we're seeing them kind of doing it gradually, and so.
I think we lost them.
Yeah, I think so. Uh-oh.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Fuck you, iPad.
Yeah, he's using
Right.
iPad. Damn you,
It
Apple.
harkens back to the Middle Ages.
Oh, there we go.
When you think about God rule and people saying, well, I should rule because God says this, and another one saying I should rule because God says that. You're going to get that same kind of thing if a society got to that point.
Roy, we missed about half of that from the beginning because you cut out for about 10 seconds there.
But
Oh.
I totally got your point, and everything else you said so far was smart, so I trust that it was also smart. All right.
Great.
But yeah, all right. Sorry. And so thank you very, very much for answering my questions. I know I'm I don't know, a little long-winded, but I really appreciate your answers. I'm going to pass you off to whichever of these two fools wants you next.
Drew.
To kind of keep up TJ's line of questioning there, I wanted to ask you about church-state separation. It's very much made clear by the First Amendment, and it benefits everybody, theists and atheists alike. So why, in your opinion, does it seem to be so hard to convince people of the mutual benefits?
I think that the religious right don't really want that. So there is this core group of 15, 18% who actually do not want church and state separated. They want to be able to impose their faith on everybody else.
You want a theocracy, yeah.
And unfortunately, Sam Harris points out that by accepting the idea that criticizing religion is taboo, the progressives and the moderates have given a full range to these religious right folks to do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. And that has led to a majority between the two against us.
Oh, great. Yeah. I guess that's kind of what I've been thinking about, because it just seems like everybody benefits from this, but you kind of see it from the standpoint of the people at the top kind of want it maybe more for like a power kind of thing. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Well, yeah,
trip, yeah.
I mean, and the fundamentalists, really. I mean, they're seeing this as a power grab, a chance to really push their right-wing ideas on everybody else. And since they're given free rein by the moderate folks who think it's taboo to criticize them, it creates this majority, which is difficult for us to break into.
Oh.
Is that really that small of a demographic, though, those types of people? I think you said 15 to 18%.
That's what I've seen in polls about those who take the Bible literally and things like that. I mean, it depends on the issue, of course. I mean, we've seen numbers about those who accept creationism generally as being much higher. But yeah, I think that's the core group.
Gotcha. All right, yeah. More of the people that go out there and promote and are major activists out there and just promote, okay, gotcha.
The fundamentalists that really want this to be a
theocracy.
Theocracy, yeah.
Oh.
Drew, go ahead, sorry.
Another question kind of off the lines of that is, living in the Bible Belt and reading as much as I do from like news articles and things like that, I know organizations like yours are always kept busy by the religious right in America, but do you ever see the necessity for the secular humanist activism? Do you ever see that coming to an end in your lifetime, or do you ever see it dwindling down from where it is at the moment?
Well, I definitely see it dwindling down. I mean, in the beginning, I was asked why I wanted to do this type of work, and part of the reason is I really see it as having the biggest potential impact of any area of work that I could be doing in the advocacy realm. And so I do think we're going to see that dwindle. I do think we're going to have progress. Will it be completed before the end of my lifetime? That remains to be seen. It's hard to predict out more than 10 or 20 years if you look at probability experts.
Right, but is it kind of getting? You do see the progression though?
Oh yeah,
I think we all see the progression. Yeah. Like
I know we see it in like the polls
and stuff like that. Pew polls, polls.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Another one it's off the line. There was something we were talking about when we were preparing for the show. We had an article, and one of the stories that it was talking about is, there was one story in particular. In 2004, it was involving a woman who was a Wiccan, and she was told that she wasn't wanted and that she should leave town. And after she refused to stand for a traditional Christian prayer that opened in a town council meeting, she sued and she won. But someone broke into her home and killed her pet parrot, and left a note attached to the body of the parrot that read, "You're next." And later on, several of her cats were killed, and her dog was beaten. And on that kind of matter, I'm actually wondering if you or anyone you know in your organization has had to deal with that sort of thing personally.
Well, we have. I mean, not myself personally, but there was a family, for instance, that we helped move to Connecticut, who fought against a religious imposition in their school, got the ACLU's help, that won their battle, but they started getting harassed so heavily by the community. Their dogs were killed twice. They had a new set of dogs that got killed again. They had their property was vandalized multiple times. Then they moved to a different part of South Carolina, and then same thing started happening after somebody found out, and so they moved to Connecticut at the end of the year last year, and since then everything's been fine. I mean, I do think that people can suffer from religious discrimination any part of this country, but there's no doubt that there are some places where it is just pervasive.
No. No. I thought TJ, did you have anything you wanted to say on that?
Yeah. Well, I live here in Florida, and I can tell you that it's, as you know, Drew, being in the South, it's not necessarily just in the South, but it's certainly more tolerant the more north you travel, or the further west you go. There's definitely that Bible Belt, and it's a lot of people that you're not going to change their minds. Doesn't matter how rational you are or anything. They want it their way, and that's it. And I guess you have to realize when you're talking to people like that, and when you're talking to people that can actually be swayed by your arguments, or that are actually willing to listen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I see it in lots of issues. I mean, even the idea of a moment of silence. In New York City, they do a moment of silence, and the kids sit around and they're quiet-ish and maybe think about the day, nothing harmful. But an hour and a half outside of Nashville, they use that as all the kids who are Christians stand up and do their prayer, and so it's done differently in different places, and that's why we have to look at the law and see how it'll be used.
No.
Drew, you got any more questions?
I'm just going to have one more that I'm going to pass you off to Paul, and this is completely out of everything that I just asked you about. Joe had mentioned earlier about you being on Fox and Friends and appearing a few times on Fox News, and I was just kind of curious what it's like to represent our position of non-belief on a program like Fox News. Mm.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity to speak to millions of people depending on the show, and so I view it as a chance to do that. And I'm not worried so much about the hosts on the show as the people in the audience. And so when I was on last time talking about our New Jersey case against the Pledge of Allegiance, I talked about how as a parent, I don't want my kids going to school, day in, day out, year after year, having to be asked to participate in something that says that they and their family are somehow lesser than those around them. And that's that they're second-class citizens. And so even if it's a hostile show like that, you can get those ideas across.
No.
Because, New Jersey is just so cool. So.
Oh, yeah.
I'm waiting for TJ to say something. Sorry.
I figured he'd be all over that.
I don't think I'm allowed since I live in Florida.
See, I was waiting.
We have Zimmerman, Casey Anthony, Rick Scott, Jeb Bush. It goes on and on and on. I'm not allowed to say anything.
Oh, man.
New Jersey, you've got the Jersey Shore and
the Jersey Rhino
and the fat one.
Well, what is it Carlin used to say? Take her where it smells. Take her to New Jersey.
Oh, geez, unbelievable. Paul, what do you got?
Oh, kiss her where she smells. Take her to New Jersey. That's what it was.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul, for that. Paul, your cues?
Oh, yeah, that's right. In the question time. Okay. Hi, Roy. How are you doing?
Good.
My questions were more based on, because I was watching interviews with you and Q&As with you. Mine were based on what the AHA is doing court-wise in the country right now. Because I know in the interview you had the Under God case, and I wondered how that went, if it's still ongoing, what other cases you have similar to that going on.
Sure. So yeah, the Under God case, we had one in Massachusetts as well, which did not win. However, we realized our error there was choosing a plaintiff who didn't themselves experience discrimination for not saying the pledge in class. We had lots of examples up and down from how this does cause prejudice to atheist and non-theist kids, but it wasn't enough if you don't have the plaintiff with that experience. And so our Jersey situation's a better one. And by the way, both these cases are a completely new legal strategy. In the past, we've had efforts to challenge the God on the money and things like that based on the First Amendment separation of church and state. This case is more of a equal protection case. In the federal Constitution, the 14th Amendment says that we have equal protection under the law. And so we are saying our group of people are being discriminated against. And I think this strategy is going to be a lot more effective in the long run.
Oh, I hope so. I dearly do.
Yeah.
Because as I was saying before we went live, in that interview, you talked about when you were in school, you refused to say the pledge, sat down, and you got sent to the principal's office. I wasn't. I sent to the principal's office. I sat down, and the teacher told me to stand up, and I refused to. I said, no, you can't make me. And they actually didn't try. But it's, many years after you were in school, and the teacher I had was a bit more open to rebelling, I guess. But okay, so in the New Jersey case, you have the plaintiff who is actually actively discriminated against. They've been told that they're not patriotic, they're not American. They've been how have they been discriminated against? So that you can argue that equal protection.
Right. Yeah, they did experience bullying for it. Kids had been telling them that lots of things like you just said. And so we have the record of that, and we're able to use that in the court proceedings. And we're actually hoping to add additional plaintiffs to it that have the same thing, so we can give lots of different stories of that. We have like 6 months or so to add plaintiffs. But by the way, that's not the only cases we're doing. We are regularly involved in lots of different cases. We won a case in California where they wanted to put a monument with a soldier kneeling in front of a cross on it. We won a case in Missouri where a teacher wanted to have public prayer sessions for a sick teacher and was doing it over a loudspeaker and asking students to come and join her. And anyway, we won that one very easily. But so we are winning cases as we go.
That's great to hear.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I was wondering how it was going, because I know a lot of people will probably say that it's pointless trying to fight the battles like this on little things such as that. But right. I don't know. It seems that every little thing just goes to show that more and more that there are people out there, and we're not just going to sit by and let it happen anymore.
Right. Well, we have to change public opinion somehow, and these cases help with that effort, I think. And also, it's helpful to bring it in the smaller cases, in the local and the state levels, because in the federal courts, the judges are really against us.
Yeah.
And that's George W. Bush
Yeah.
stacked the court with religious right, conservative Catholics and evangelicals, and our efforts to win in the federal courts are only going to come after a time when we're winning in the states.
I'm sorry, but when you have DOMA and DOMA barely, wins, with 5-4, it's, there's an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, and I was going to ask about that, because the recent court case, the Supreme Court saying that, or was it the Supreme Court that the meeting before was perfectly fine. The government held the meeting, the government-led meeting is perfectly fine because it's traditional. There's a recent Supreme Court case, I believe,
Right.
that said that the meeting is okay. And how is that possible? Except with
yeah, we're very disappointed, of course, in the Greece ruling, where they said that you could go ahead and pray to Jesus in Jesus's name, as part of these proceedings before city council meetings and the like. The way we're countering that one is we're trying to have a nationwide campaign of secular leaders going out and doing secular invocations. And we've got 150 people signed up already, and dozens of people have already got their secular invocations scheduled, including one next month in Greece, New York.
And all right, so, actually, that's really only the questions I had. It was about the court cases and how it's going on about that in what the Humanist, or sorry, the American Humanist Society Association. I'm sorry, I'm all mixed up right now with the all the different organizations, the society here, Humanist there.
Right.
I just want to, because I know in the interviews you're big on trying to fight the battles for equality and doing the legal cases, and you actually encourage people to contact if they have problems, correct?
Absolutely. And we would love to hear from you if you've got a situation in your area, and perhaps our lawyers can help. We have 2 lawyers on staff, and we've also got a team now of over 100 pro bono attorneys who are willing to help out in various parts around the country.
That's an awesome question, Paul. And Roy, thanks for the reply. And where can one contact you at if you would like to hit us up here so we can have this on file for the video?
Okay. Well, you could reach us at my email address, just rspeckhardt at American Humanist, or you could catch me on Twitter, rspeckhardt again, or you could find me on Facebook. You could also check our staff out and reach people individually by going to AmericanHumanist.org.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. And I will include all these links, including your links to your blogs, Huffington Post and all that. And sir, thank you very much for coming on the show, man. It was a great time, man. I really loved it. I really did, man. It was really great.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was a good time. So, I'll keep you on Facebook, or I should say Skype, and then, I'll hit you up for future interviews. And if anything happens, I'll hit you up and then say, yeah, come in, let's talk about this a little bit if you want to. And TJ, Drew, Paul, you got anything to say before we end it here?
Just wanted to thank you very much. And, the video I made that featured you a long time ago was a Fox News interview where you were talking about the Reason Rally. And you would talk to Father Jonathan and whatever that lady's name is.
Laura.
I really have to appreciate your patience.
Yes.
To deal with it, because I know how much patience it takes to deal with Fox News. I've been doing it for a long time on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And I remember covering that video, and it was the only moments of sanity in the entire thing was when you were talking. So I appreciate having you here, and thanks for answering my questions.
Absolutely.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Drew, Paul.
Yeah, appreciate you for being here, and we appreciate your organization as well. I was reading some of the things that your organization is taking part in trying to ban public funding for private schools and things like that. That's great.
Excellent. Paul?
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for being on, Roy. And like Drew, I really love your organization, love what they do, especially the legal aspect to it, because as much as we do here on YouTube, try to spread the word, it really is good that there's a association out there trying to make a difference legally. So much that you are, I'm sorry, because there's multiple ones, but I mean that you're trying to make such a difference that the way you do.
Great.
Exactly. Thanks, Paul. And thank you, Roy. Again, tonight's guest is Roy Speckhardt. He is Executive Director of the American Humanist Association, and all links will be provided in the description box when this video comes out. Roy, again, thank you very much, sir. It was a great time. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us for a little bit. I appreciate it.
Yep, we'll do. We'll do it again sometime soon. Right.
All right. If you want to hang